Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Thinking that the stock market is the only risk to your retirement? Think again.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, five-time author and fiduciary, the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
When you think about risk as you plan for retirement, you probably think about investment risk or the stock market, right? Well, most people do. But what you don't realize is that there are over 9 overlooked risks that could be even more dangerous and could bring your retirement to a screeching halt. I'm Tony Walker, and welcome to the Worry-Free Retirement. So we're going to take a look today at the 9 most overlooked risks that you could encounter that could threaten your retirement. And of course, any of these risks could cost you thousands of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands over your lifetime, hundreds of thousands of dollars to you and or your kids. So let's talk about these 9 risks and what you can do to protect yourself from them happening to you. Now, the first risk, the financial world always loves to call this, it's a very fancy schmancy term, is called longevity risk. Now, this first risk my granddad used to simply call the risk of going broke in retirements. In other words, the risk of outliving your money. You know, it's kind of interesting today that we are all fighting, it seems like, to live longer and longer than ever before. And because so many people are living so much longer, this longevity risk, as the actuaries like to call it, is affecting millions of people because these millions of people are living longer and longer, which of course has a profound impact on retirement as we know it. In fact, just look at the recent concerns over the teachers' retirement plan in the state of Kentucky. Nobody would have ever thought that many of these folks would continue to live this long. Thus, among many factors, it's having an impact on the future of that plan. You know, Granddad, he used to talk about this mailbox money all the time and the guarantees that you would have. And of course, some of these guarantees are going the way of the dinosaur. Let's face it. The last place you want to be is 80 years of age, full of life, and flat broke. Interesting enough, Forbes hit this topic head on, reminding us that in their estimation over the last 200 years, really interesting stuff here, life expectancy has increased by 2 or 3 years every decade. Now that implies for those in their 60s, they have a 50% chance of living into their late 80s. I know this sounds a little spooky. I'm 57, by the way. So if we're in our 50s, which my wife and I are, we could be around, there's a good chance, into our early 90s. My wife would say, perish the thought that I had to spend this much time with Tony. The article goes on to say, even more dramatic is the number of people living beyond 100, which we covered in a previous show. Today, they estimate there's about 72,000 people in the U.S. who are over the age of 100. Now, this trend continues. There will be approximately 1 million people over the age of 100 by the year 2050. That's almost a scary thought to picture all of those 100-year-old people kind of aimlessly wandering around the earth. It reminds me of like 1 million people doing the old Tim Conway shuffle back on Carol Burnett. This is not a pretty picture, folks. But anyway, we think about this whole notion of longevity and outliving your money and this huge risk that occurs because people are actually living longer, the risk of running out of money in retirement. Now, this fooled the politicians back in 1935. They had it all wrong. They came up with this idea called Social Security. Now, the idea was everybody's going to put money away, and then one day when you hit this magical age of 65, why 65? Well, you're going to see that in a minute. But anyway, everybody hits the age of 65. We'll have money for them. They'll have retirement. We'll live happily ever after. Now, the politicians knew this would never work. That's why they used 65. They knew it wouldn't work because the average life expectancy in 1935 was about 62. So as you can imagine, they figured, hey, Not many people are actually going to collect on Social Security. It'll be fine. Well, as we know, the rest of the story, people are living longer. Social Security is not fine, and we have what we call longevity risk in action. The second risk to your retirement, boy, this is a biggie, skyrocketing healthcare costs and or long-term care issues. Now, as I've said on this show time and time again, 15 years ago when I was doing retirement planning with people, we didn't even dream of worrying about how much health insurance was going to cost when you retired. In fact, 15 years ago, the majority of the people that I met with, many of their employers paid for their health insurance as long as they were retired or they subsidized it. Today, you need to ensure, though, that a health issue with you, your spouse, parent, or child doesn't turn into a financial catastrophe. In fact, it's gotten so bad that according to different sources, listen to this figure, a 65-year-old couple can expect to spend north of $250,000 over their lifetime on health care and medical expenses during retirement. We're talking about things not covered by Medicare. And as of the date of the recording of this show, assuming you have not yet reached Medicare age, and thus you're ineligible for any kind of Medicare supplement in the state of Kentucky anyway, imagine that. You're out here having to buy an individual policy. Again, this was not a problem years ago. These policies now, if you can get them, a lot of people can't even get individual health insurance, is anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a month. It's a big ticket, folks. Now, nearly 70% of all the people who live to age 65, you've got to remember this, will require some form of long-term care. Now, it may not be a long-term stay in a nursing home or home health care, but nevertheless, it's still an expense, and these expenses can be staggering. Last year alone, I had a client, this has happened several times, but this particular client's husband came down with Alzheimer's. Obviously, she took care of him as long as she could, but she couldn't take care of him any longer. He was unmanageable. So she puts him in a nursing facility specializing in Alzheimer's patients, and she's spending almost $9,000 a month until his passing. Folks, that's a lot of money. Talking about going broke in retirement. So again, health care issues are a huge risk, and can we actually alleviate all those costs? Of course we can't, but with the WorryFree Retirement, in some cases, we can minimize other costs that you're going through, fees and taxes and all this money you're wasting, and apply that towards helping you with these healthcare costs. That's the whole point. Risk number 3, having too much of your wealth in your house. Now let's go back to Granddad's day. Here's a shot of he and Hazel sitting out on their porch. Pretty humble beginnings there and pretty humble ending, quite frankly, because they kept that house as long as they lived. Back in those days, what you did, because most people had pensions and very low-key lifestyles, no debt, etc., the house was truly the most valuable asset that generation had. So the goal was to get that house paid off because they never planned on moving out of it. And while we might agree today that certainly a home is a very valuable asset, it really should not be included as part of your income assets because most of you do not have pension plans. Many of you have very little Social Security. You've got other issues, all this stuff we're talking about today. And most importantly, you're relying on 401k plans or CDs or brokerage accounts or annuities. So those are more of your income assets, not your house. But if a big portion of your wealth, think about this, is tied up in your home. Maybe you've worked hard and you've got a nice home and you've socked all your money away into this house because you wanted to be debt-free like Granddad. The problem is it leaves you with little support from other income in retirement. The house is what we call illiquid. In fact, the only way to get money out of it is either sell it, borrow against it to turn it into cash flow, but that creates interest and affects your personal cash flow because you got to pay it back. And then worse yet, which again, you could consider doing something like this. I'm not a big fan of them, but it could work. You got to get a reverse mortgage. And you say, hey, yeah, Tony, what about those reverse mortgages? How come I'm hearing more about those? For this very reason, folks, what's happened is people have paid off their homes. They didn't anticipate retirement was much different than Granddad's, and here we are now. So they have to go back into the home. They do what's called a reverse mortgage. It's no out-of-pocket cost, which is good. It doesn't affect your current cash flow, which is great. The problem is that mortgage is accumulating interest. So one day when you pass away, whoever inherits the house gets stuck with a mortgage plus all the interest you never paid back, and that's the problem. So again, do we disregard reverse mortgages? No. They can be a good resort, but I would like to say a reverse mortgage should be a last resort. Let's cover one more before we take a break. This is an interesting one. Most people who come to me, let's say they're retired and they're looking at me and they say, Tony, if I ask them this question, what was the one thing you wished you would have done when you were younger? And they say, Tony, without question, I wished I'd just saved more money. Now I know things, if you're like me folks, I think things are in reverse, By the time you finally have money, the kids are all gone, you're sitting around a big home and you're looking at Martha and going, where did the time go? When you're trying to raise kids, you don't have any money. I get that. I realize it's very difficult to save money, but you have to rely on some form of discipline to save this money. You can't rely on government pensions. Social Security may not be enough. The 401k plans, I know they're way up as of the date of this recording. Today is January 16th, 2018, but folks, that's on paper. If you're age 50 and you got a bunch of money in the 401k, we don't know what it's going to be worth, right, at age 65? So what you have to do is save. Now, general rule of thumb that I like to use with people, just a general rule to help you, is save 15% of whatever your gross income is. And I don't care where you put it. Throw it under the mattress, I don't care. But so if you make $50,000, you're going to commit to saving $7,500 a year. If you make $100,000, $15,000 a year. We can help you channel that savings into all kinds of different products. We represent just about every product imaginable, and we can help you deal with your savings issue. Remember folks, there's no one size fits all. The best thing you can do is meet with a trained professional like myself, get the game plan out, look at these risks, and then set that plan in motion. Speaking of risks, we've still got 5 more to go through, if you can believe that. We're going to take a quick break. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. You stay tuned. We got some really good stuff coming your way. Feel like the financial world is making more money on your money than you are? Tired of working hard to save money only to get 1% in return? Well, I'm Tony Walker, inviting you to meet with me in person to create a safe and simple game plan that includes mailbox money for life. To schedule your no-obligation appointment with me, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. While there, just click on the Let's Get Started button and we'll make that happen at your convenience. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Aaron, our producer of the show, says, chop, chop, Tony, got to move here on these steps. We're talking about the risks to your retirement. Number 5, just got off the phone with somebody. This is happening more and more. Supporting other people that you didn't plan on supporting. Now, this could be caring for your parents, supporting kids, and yes, even supporting grandkids when you're in retirement. This happens a lot. People are living longer and longer, so basically what's happening is the odds are going up that somebody is going to have to care for somebody else. I think about this somebody thing. It was a funny story. I was watching, there's a picture of 4 of our dogs. Now the 2 dogs I'm going to mention unfortunately have passed away, but years ago I was down in the basement with Holly and Hershey, our 2 dachshunds at the time. We only had those 2 dogs. I'm down there watching TV. Our daughter Lacey, who was only 14 at the time, was like 10 miles away visiting some friend of hers out in the middle of nowhere. And my wife kind of traipses down, sticks her head around the corner and says, hey, somebody's got to go get Lacey. So I kind of look over at Holly. Holly's not going anywhere. I think Hershey doesn't have his driver's license yet. I said, hey, I guess that's me. Well, you know what? That sometimes happens in real life. All of a sudden you wake up and you look around, mom or dad needs help, or and it's like somebody's going to have to take care of them, and that somebody might just be you. So this all has to be factored in, folks. This is not the typical retirement people had 40 years ago. You may have to build into your planning flexibility to help you help other people. And then if you're at an age where you're worried about saying, well, Tony, I don't have to help anybody. I'm worried about getting old and my kids having to take care of me. Let's sit down and review things like long-term care, estate planning, your life insurance, ways to try to protect you so you don't have to have your kids take care of you. Take advantage of that. Let's meet in person. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on the Let's Get Started button. Folks, I don't know why people think there's an age limitation to call me. I talked to somebody today. They'd actually let me know on the website they were interested in meeting, and she goes, we're already retired. We don't need to meet. And I thought, what's that got to do with anything? Half of my clientele who come to me, new people, are already retired. It doesn't matter your age, folks. We have ideas that can help you, all right? Risk number 6, inflation. Now, I agree. I'm not going to disagree. Inflation is real. It's been going up every year. As long as the Fed keeps printing money, folks, we're going to have inflation. The dollar is going to buy less and less as you get older. However, I disagree with a lot of the financial world. I'm afraid they're using this as a scare tactic because you can't control inflation. What you can control is your life. And what I've seen, and I think this is good news actually, in my clients, and I've got thousands of clients, and many of them are already retired or what I call in the second half of life, many of these people spend less and less. So think about this. This is good news actually. As you get older, although we have inflation, more than likely, unless you have health care issues, you will spend less and less money. It's just a fact. So here's the point, folks. Aaron, let's put this graphic up. I show this all the time. I love it. As I get more and more into retirement planning, I've done this for over 16 years. This is so true. There are 3 halves you're going to go through, folks. The first half of life, I generally say, is before now and age 59 and a half. Halftime is between 59 and a half and 70 and a half. We use those ages on purpose because it has to do with tax planning. But basically the second half of life, once you hit 70 and a half and beyond, tell me if you agree with me on this, if you've ever watched anybody get older into their 70s and 80s, you will spend less money. So the worry-free retirement is different. We want you to use and enjoy and protect your money during halftime. We don't want to stockpile the money and wake up one day at 85 years of age and you don't have a plan to use and enjoy it. So this is the difference between the worry-free retirement. We take a realistic approach to your money. I know we got inflation. I'm no dummy there, folks. I understand that. But what we realize is inflation can be our friend if we have a game plan to deal with it. So don't be so consumed with inflation. Let us help you show you how you can combat it. All right, number 7. This is a good one. Relying on too much the traditional income options. Folks, successful retirements are not built on assets. The assets are there to generate income. All right? Think about an engine. The engine creates horsepower within it. The bigger the engine, the more horsepower, the quicker you'll go. Just because you've got a bunch of assets doesn't mean you have the ability or have the game plan in place to maximize your income. So remember, what we have to do, it's great that you have assets, but if they don't generate consistent income, we've got a problem. This is why, for savers, I love annuities. We do so many of these fixed indexed annuities because, number one, they're guaranteed, they cannot lose value. But more importantly, if we do decide to kick in what I call mailbox money, these products will pay income for the rest of your life. By the way, we don't peddle this enough, and we should. I love this booklet. I wrote this years ago. It's called the Annuity Decision Guide for Savers. This booklet is absolutely free. Go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Let us know. We will mail you a copy of this absolutely free. It talks about the 4 different types of annuities. Read that book. Contact us. Let's meet to talk about them. If you don't have an annuity and you're a saver, folks, you're missing the boat. These tools are wonderful tools for income planning. Well, what about the stock market? Let's talk about that a minute. The stock market right now is at an all-time high. Please, please, please don't fall into this trap. I did this back in the 90s when I was managing money. We were making 12, 13, 14% with ease on people's money. And what we fell into is the trap of thinking that we could make 8, 10, 12% on the income. Well, that's unrealistic, folks. So I would caution you. That's great, the stock market's going up. But when you're running an income plan, make sure these assets are showing 3 to 4 or 5% gain as most. Because if we do go through another market downturn, it could be horrific, and you don't want to be banking on thinking you're making 8 or 9% when maybe you're really going to make long-term maybe 3 or 4. We talked about longevity. We talked about the ability to generate income without risk. This is what we specialize in, all right? The industry calls it a financial plan. I don't really call it a financial plan. That's just a lot of math. What we're talking about is a retirement plan, one that is diversified. Diversified not only of lower taxes and lower fees, but different streams, hopefully, of different ways of taking income. Great, great risk that we can try to help you avoid. Here's that risk number 8. Boy, this is probably our biggest one, and this gets the most traction when I start talking to people about reducing taxes. I'm sorry, folks, they can call it as patriotic as they want. And now the super wealthy will say, well, I don't mind paying taxes. Well, yeah, you know, if you're worth $2 billion, I mean, you can't even spend what you got, who cares? But the average Joe like us, taxes are a real issue. And if they're taking out taxes from your income, when you retire, they take it out. From your pensions, they take it out. They can take it out of your Social Security. All this, if you have a brokerage account kicking off dividends, well, that goes on your tax return. That's called double taxation. It goes on and on and on. And if you do not have a strategy for reducing taxes, this could be one of your biggest costs. I mean, folks, forget what kind of returns you make. If you make 10%, but you're wasting it out the back door in taxes, what's it matter? See, my thoughts for a saver, why wouldn't you want to lower your taxes, keep your returns at a point where you're not taking so much risk, and try to enjoy so much more money? That just makes more sense to me. But you have to have control over your taxes, and that starts with a game plan. Now, we call this the tax tumor. I got one more step to get to, but this is important. People ask about this. Tony, what is this tax tumor you keep talking about? That's the amount of money you owe Uncle Sam that is buried. It's literally buried. It's there, but you don't see it in your 401k. It's buried in your thrift savings account. It's buried in your 403b. And it's buried if you decide to take a lump sum pension out or you've got an IRA already. So this tax tumor, if you don't fool with it and deal with it, it will grow. Now, here's the problem with a tax tumor. You can avoid it. You can say, well, I'll just let it go until I die and then it'll be done with. No. The problem is this 40% tax, it could be as high as 40%. You don't deal with it, then it gets passed to your kids and they have to deal with it. That's why I call it a tumor. It's not going on unless you get somebody like us to help you. And in many cases, I have the utmost respect, by the way, for accountants and CPAs. I've got a CPA, but they are not trained, nor do they have the time or inclination to help you do what we call forward planning for taxes, dealing with the tax tumor. That's what we do. So again, if you've got a 401k, IRA, thrift savings account, thinking about, you're not sure whether to take a lump sum pension, please contact us. Let's get started. Let's look at everything. Let me kind of give you a visual of what the future taxes are going to be on your retirement accounts. And finally, this is a biggie. We do this all the time. This is trying to understand when to take your Social Security, when to claim your Social Security in terms of married, and then how to make sure you don't pay extra taxes on your Social Security. Folks, this could result in thousands of dollars of wasted money if you goof up on this Social Security deal. When do you take the benefits? We can help you with that. In fact, Lisa in our office, she specializes in the Social Security claiming strategies and is there to assist you. If you have any questions at all, just email her at lisa@TonyWalkerFinancial.com, lisa@TonyWalkerFinancial.com. And more importantly, we're going to offer this to you. If you are over the age of 55 and you have at least $50,000 of investable assets, here's what we're going to do for you. The first 10 people that call, you got to call. Our Social Security analysis is absolutely free. We'll provide that. You do have to come to the office for this, though. Here's our toll-free number. Let's put this on the screen, Aaron. First 10 callers will do a free Social Security analysis. It's 888-223-4433. 888-223-4433. Well, what does the Bible have to say? Boy, this was a mouthful, wasn't it? What does the Bible have to say about risking your money? It doesn't have anything to say about risking your money, but it has a whole lot to say about stopping the worry associated with risks that sometimes you can't control. I got a great answer for that one, but first I got to get me a cup of coffee. I'll be right back.
Worried about running out of money in retirement? For a limited time, 5-time author and retirement specialist Tony Walker is making available his latest book, Mailbox Money for Life. For your free copy, simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Are you retired or retiring soon? Can you afford for your money to take a hit with the stock market being so volatile these days? Nobody can time the market, but having a retirement game plan with Tony Walker Financial gives you peace of mind and sleep insurance. Learn how to prevent losses in your retirement accounts and plan your retirement around an income you can never outlive. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com today to schedule a personal meeting with Tony to secure your hard-earned money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Oh yeah, good cup of coffee and welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. Does the Bible have anything to say about your money in retirement? No, but it does say a lot about not worrying about it. How does the Bible do this? How does it address it? How does God provide for those who claim Him as their own? Well, let's turn actually to Spurgeon's devotional on January 9th, and he paraphrases Jeremiah 31:33. Jeremiah 31:33, and let's just see what Spurgeon says. He simply emphasizes inside this verse, I will be their God. Now, I think the reason Mr. Spurgeon picked this particular verse is that we need reminding that God wants to be our God. He desires to bless us. He desires to continue to show His love for us. Even as David said in 23:5 of Psalm, my cup runneth over. I have more than my heart could wish for. And we say, did David have any money? Was he worried about risking money in retirement? The answer is, of course not. He had God at the helm no matter what was going on in his life. And David's heart was full of God's Spirit, God's promises, God's guarantees. And in the end, folks, let's face it, that's all we need. We need reminders that God delights in providing for those who love Him. So my advice, certainly do all you can with what you got. That's what I'm here for, to help you with the money side of things. Get somebody to assist you, for goodness sake. And in the end, though, here's what I would say. Stop putting all of your faith in the world's ways, and stop letting the world put all this fear into your heart. Put your faith in the present promises of God. And God, who wants to be your God, I guarantee you, He'll overcome your worries. Well, you might be saying, well, Tony, now what? What can I do to get control of my finances in retirement? Well, regardless of whether you're retired or thinking of retiring in the near future, may I suggest getting together with me? I'll meet with you personally at no cost or obligation in our Bowling Green or Louisville offices. And what we'll do, we'll sit down and we'll go over your specific situation. Another thing you might think about, my gosh, the market's at an all-time high. If you were at Vegas, I don't gamble, but if you were at Vegas and you had a bunch of chips on the table, would you just keep rolling the dice? Or maybe would you take at least some of those chips off the table and bank them in a guaranteed place? I think I would. Why don't you give us an opportunity to just review where you are, maybe take some of those winnings off the table. We'll show you some options to safeguard that money. TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Click on that Let's Get Started button. If you don't have access to the internet handy, call our toll-free number right now. We'll be happy to meet with you. It's 888-223-4433. 888-223-4433. And until next time, I'll see you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But between now and then, if all else fails, do me a favor, try to be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.